Stanford basketball, steeped in tradition, conference titles, All-Americans, NCAA tournament success, and more recently, four-year contributors who have long been the lifeblood of the program. But college careers are finite. Names will change. Batons will be passed. Fresh memories will be created. A new star is ready to shoot through the Pac-10 skies. A team captain poised to take his place among the all-time Cardinal greats.
I think that people across the country are going to know his name throughout this entire season.
A blue-collar group of unknowns intent on introducing themselves to conference foes.
If people don't think you're good, it just gives you a reason to prove them wrong.
A coach with a critical year of experience under his belt.
Rebound! Good job, Jack. Pivot out of there. Good.
He and his staff taking a massive step toward returning Stanford to its glory days.
I've seen them all, and they all look really good.
The present and future, brimming with possibilities, Maples Pavilion ready to rock. As the newest edition of Stanford basketball takes center stage, it all begins now. Hi everybody, welcome to our preseason look at Stanford basketball. I'm Scott Reese here in Maples Pavilion on the campus of Stanford University. A lot of great memories in this building over the years, and rest assured, there are plenty more to come. The question is, how soon will that happen? Stanford lost a lot of firepower from last year's team, and the task at hand for Coach Johnny Dawkins is to find a way to replace that talent. Easier said than done. That talent includes three-year starters Mitch Johnson, Lawrence Hill, and Anthony Goods, as well as sharpshooter Kenny Brown. Hill and Goods both earned all-conference honors twice. Johnson second on the school's career assist list. Suffice it to say, there are gaping holes to fill.
The biggest adjustment is, you have a lot of players that haven't been in that position before. What we're going to face this season, the inexperience. But we feel the guys are working hard, getting better every day, and we'll definitely miss those seniors, but it's an opportunity for us to grow and build with a younger group and with a lot of potential.
The four departed seniors accounted for 57% of Stanford's offense last season, as the Cardinal reached 20 wins for the 20th time and earned an invite to the College Basketball Invitational. Postseason play figured to be an uphill battle for this year's squad, and that was before the landscape changed significantly. This was supposed to be a transition year at Stanford, but it wasn't supposed to be like this. A timeline of potential disaster straight out of a hoops horror flick. Projected starter Will Paul, placed on academic suspension for at least a year. Incoming freshman Andy Brown tears his ACL for the second time in 10 months. Junior Josh Owens, the team's top big man, diagnosed with a potentially career-threatening medical condition. Sophomore Jeremy Green, the team's best shooter, suspended for violation of team rules. The upshot, an already thin roster, reduced to just 7 recruited scholarship players, only 3 of whom played double-digit minutes last season.
It's hard because those guys are definitely great additions to the team, but we don't want to make any excuses for anybody. We're just going to take it day by day, and hopefully we get some of them back.
The main thing is that every day that we go to practice, we grow. With those guys out, we have to be aware that who's going to step up for us, who's going to make contributions now, and we're seeing that.
Vintage Johnny Dawkins turning a negative into a positive, making basketball-sized lemons into lemonade.
Here we go. Let's see it.
But his is only one voice. If this group is to rise above the adversity, it will have to be a collective effort.
We can't dwell on these guys being injured and things like that and not feel sorry for ourselves, so it's really important to keep that mindset.
The only way it's going to affect us negatively is if we choose to let it, have a poor impact, but if we choose to step in and move on and grow from it, then it'll only make us stronger and better.
I'm seeing guys getting better because they're in a position where they don't know what's going to happen with some of our players. Now, as those guys start to resurface through time, we may have a stronger lineup over the long run.
The pundits less optimistic about Stanford's prospects.
They have to rank us somewhere, and in a lot of polls, we've been ranked at the bottom.
Some teams might take umbrage at that. This group naturally sees the silver or cardinal lining.
I think it's a really good thing for us in a sense that with no expectations, guys can fuel off that. As a competitor, you want people to think you're good, and if people don't think you're good, it just gives you a reason to prove them wrong.
There's no place to go but up. I feel that we can be a better team than where we're ranked, provided we continue to grow in the areas that are important for us to get better in. If those things happen, I think we can compete with anyone, and we'll have our fair chance to win our fair share of games.
Well, finally, just prior to Stanford's opener in San Diego, some good news. Jeremy Green was reinstated to the team and begins the season at shooting guard. He and Landry Fields will shoulder the bulk of the offensive load, with Drew Schiller running the show at point guard. We bring in the voice of Stanford basketball, Dave Fleming, and let's talk about this team. It's not perhaps the most talented Stanford group we've had in the last couple of decades, but that said, there are some pieces that can be very, very exciting and give fans something to watch.
Yeah, I think, starting at the top with a couple of the standouts, you're right. It's going to be a younger team, a less experienced team, but a team that has a chance to hold its own, particularly, I think, playing here at home. Pac-10 season could be rough this year for Stanford, but I think they can win some games and maybe get some unexpected wins.
When you talk about star power on this team, it obviously starts with Landry Fields and Jeremy Green, a kid who I think is really ready to take that next step toward Pac-10 stardom. Yeah,
I totally agree. I mean, I am more excited about him than I have been about almost any Stanford player in a long time. I get Brooke Lopez would be in that category. Jeremy, totally different kind of player, but to watch some of the individual performances that he had where he just took over a game as a freshman who was not the focal point of last year's team. Most of those actually happened on the road. I think Stanford fans are waiting to see those happen here at home, but he has a special scoring ability that very few players, I'm talking about across the country, have. He can be that good of a pure scorer. Maybe doesn't have yet the all-around game, but this guy, before his career is over, can lead the Pac-10 in scoring.
All right, don't go anywhere. We'll get back with you in just a bit.
Okay.
One player who will have no problem seizing the opportunity, Landry Fields. Coming up, why Stanford's new captain took the road less traveled just to get to the farm, and how he's transformed himself into an NBA prospect. Also, Coach Dawkins, unstoppable on the recruiting trail, why the fruits of his labor should have Stanford back among the nation's elite teams in years to come.
Here's the beautiful pass. Look away and find the cutting Lawrence Hill. Now the crowd's alive. That might get you going a little bit.
The Stanford Hall of Fame room, emblematic of the history and tradition here on campus. So many great players have come through the program, Landry Fields being the latest. But Landry's place in the Stanford lineage was anything but a slam dunk. Stanford is a haven for the goal-oriented student-athlete. For Landry Fields, Stanford itself was the goal.
There is life after basketball no matter how long you play, and I know that I can fall back on my Stanford degree and whatever I do, and just to say you're coming from Stanford, I think says a lot. I knew that Stanford was the place I wanted to be at, academically and athletically.
Trouble was, Stanford didn't want him, at least not at first. Oh sure, his basketball abilities had long piqued the interest of then-coach Trent Johnson, but his academic credentials were not quite up to the school's lofty standards.
It was pretty difficult. I actually had to wait until the spring signing period to sign because I was waiting on admissions. I think it was after a few SATs where I had to, really sit down and wait, and by then it had come down to Stanford and Arizona. And at that time, Arizona was looking great. Who doesn't want to go to a program like that?
So Landry had two options: accept a standing offer from a perennial powerhouse, or keep working, studying, retesting, waiting for his dream school. Most would have opted for the quick fix. Landry took the road less traveled, and ultimately his resolve was rewarded.
It was very exciting. You know, I actually, it didn't take long for me to commit. I think it was a couple of days later, you know, I had to call Coach Olson and be like, look, I got into Stanford, you know, I'm going to go there. But that was probably one of the harder things I've had to do.
One hurdle cleared, Landry, demonstrating the textbook tenacity of a Stanford student, sprinted right toward the next, though this one was, to a large extent, beyond his control.
I remember the first time, Landry and I met was his freshman year, and he was probably 6'5", 6'4", pretty skinny, and looked really young, had a real baby face.
It's been difficult in high school. I was like, when am I going to grow? When am I going to get bigger and all this stuff? You know, I guess I had to wait until college for that to happen.
And happen it did. The spindly 17-year-old freshman has transformed into a physically imposing basketball specimen.
Followed by Landry Field.
All the while improving his game exponentially.
He's so skilled, so talented, works so hard, just makes everybody around him want to play harder.
He's really turned himself into a complete player who can be one of the best players not only in the conference but in the country, and I think that people across the country are going to know his name.
He's our leader. He's our best player, and I tell you what, he's really grown a lot over the last year and a half. Give the kid a lot of credit. I mean, it shows just through hard work and your effort, what you can accomplish, and he's grown to be quite a player, and I think it's, best basketball still ahead of him.
I would love to play, the NBA is definitely a goal, my first goal. But like I said, this year I got a lot of work to do this year with this year's team. I'm just going to take it day by day, and hopefully I'll be blessed.
No questioning the choice of Landry as team captain. He's an inspiration off the court, and on it, he's improved statistically every year with the Cardinal. And even with defenses keying on him this season, Fields is set to put up all-conference numbers and pave the way for a professional career. Back again with Dave Fleming, the voice of Stanford basketball, and let's talk about Landry Fields, who has developed into one of the elite players in the entire Pac-10 conference.
Yeah, when Trent Johnson recruited him as a skinny kid, I think he was 17 years old as a senior in high school. Young, small, athletic, had a lot of potential. Trent said, this kid ultimately can be, it's going to take some time, it's going to take some patience, but he can be one of the very best players in this league. And I think it's happened. He has become such an all-around threat. Outside game, inside game, great knack for rebounding, and he's just gotten so much more physically imposing. He's worked so hard to become a stronger player, a guy who can hold his own against the upperclassmen of the Pac-10. It's been fun to watch his development because I do think that he will be an all-Pac-10 player this year, and I think even on a Stanford team that probably is not going to win a lot of games, I think he'll get some votes for Conference Player of the Year.
All right, Dave Fleming weighing in on the present and the future in just a bit. You think Johnny Dawkins is a calm, quiet kind of guy? Check him out on the practice courts.
I don't hear you talking, you talking, you talking. I hear you talking a little bit.
And I'm Drew Schiller, Stanford point guard. You know I can hit the three, but can I hit the highlights? My sportscasting debut is coming right up.